All right, welcome back. Now let's write the code to make this work, to merge two sorted arrays. So if you jumped to this video because you saw implementation in the title, I recommend you just go back and take a look at the rough pseudocode, how it's supposed to work, just so you understand what we're doing here. So here I'll start by defining, I have a snippet as always. I'll call it merge, my function, and it takes in two arrays. Let's just do ARR1 and ARR2. And then in here, the very first thing we should make is just make a variable called results. Empty array, and then at the very end we return results, like that. And then we need to do all of our logic. So the first thing we'll do is make our two little pointers. We're going to start with a variable at 0 and another one at 0, one for each array, and then they'll move through individually. So we'll do let I equal 0, let j equal 0, or whatever. You could call it ARR1 index or something, but I'm just going to go with I. Okay, so now the bulk of our logic, we need to have a while loop that runs while I is less than the length of the array and j is less than the length. Basically meaning while there is still data for us to look at in both. If we hit the end of one of them, remember in the last video what I showed, when we started here, then we hit the end of 50 and there was still data here, we're going to do something else. So this first loop only applies when we're looping through both at the same time. So while I is less than array1.length and j is less than array2.length. Perfect. Now we just do a simple comparison of array2 of j and array1 of I. So it's up to us which one we want to do first. I'm going to say if array2 of j is greater than array1 of I. It's so confusing to try and talk about. If this is our results, we're basically checking if this one is greater than this one, what do? We take this and we put it in results. So if that's the case, we're going to say results.push array. Oh, and I said that backwards. I'm sorry. If this one is greater than this, then we take the smaller one and we put it in there. I don't know why. We're not trying to do descending order. We want the smallest items first. All right. So we're going to push array1 of I if it is smaller, if array1 is the smallest thing. And if that's the case, if we actually push array1 in, we then need to move I. It's no longer going to be 0. We need to move I up by 1. And that's super easy. I plus plus. Okay, so now we have an else, which is a lot of times, well, I guess we haven't covered the edge case if they're the same value. So instead of doing an else if array2 is less than array1, because if we just did greater than and less than, we'd be missing the case of equality. But we can just pick one. We could do greater than or equal to with an else, or do greater than and then have an else, which will catch the case when they're equal and when array1 is greater. Okay, so if that's the case, otherwise we do results.push array2 of j, and then we increment j by 1 because now we're moving up. So that would be do we have that scenario? Let's see, in the first time through, we put 1 in here, and then we're looking at 10 and 2. Yes, so now 2 is smaller. So in that case, we add 2 in, which is from array of j, but then we increment j by 1, and we go here. Array of 2, I mean. All right. So if we look at what happens at the end of this loop, let's print this out. Well, we're going to return results, so we don't actually need to print it. It's not complete, but it's getting there. So we end up with 1, 2, 10, 14, and 50. Because what happened is we did this, then this. We did 10, 14, did 50, and then we hit the end because we did 50, and then we added 1 to I, and we hit the end of the array. So this loop broke out. We finished. So what needs to happen afterwards once we exhaust one of them, because remember our condition, while I is less than array1.length and j is less than array2.length, once we hit the end, we then just take everything that's left in j and add it in. Or if this was shorter, like here, if we hit the end, we then take whatever's left in the first array and add it in. So that's easy as well. I'm just going to do 2 while loops, and I'll just have a while loop while I is less than array1.length. What are we going to do? Results.push array1 of I, and then just add 1 to I. So basically the same logic in here, It's just that we're not doing a conditional check anymore. And I'm going to just duplicate this, but then replace I with j, and array 1 with array 2. Does that make sense? So whatever happens at the end, we merge them as far as we can until we hit the end of one of the arrays. So let's say we hit the end of array 1. That means that array 2 still has stuff in it. So j hasn't hit the end. So j will be less than array2.length. In our case, if we hit the end, 0, 1, 2, 3, we get 1, 2, 10, 14, 50. That means that j is currently at index of, 0, 1, 2. So we have to add this in, and we have to add this in. And then j will have hit the end. J will be equal to array.length at that point, and then we finish. And we return results. Let's see if it works. It looks good. If we tried something sneakier, like an empty array, and then the array 1, 3, it still works because this loop never runs, right? All that happens is that we have array of 2, so j is less than array of 2, so we just push in all the results, or all the items in array of 2 into results, and then return that. If we tried, let's see, doing something like 100, and then over here, I don't know, I don't really even have anything worth showing at this point. That won't work, it needs to be sorted. All I want to show is that it works, and it does. Okay, so this is the first part of merge sort. This is the longest part, actually. If you came up with something better, definitely share it in the comments, post on the discussion board. But this is a pretty simple way of doing it, and I think it's pretty legible, pretty easy to understand and walk through. So we're going to use this code in the next video where we add on and actually implement merge sort. Right now, this only works with 2 sorted arrays. Okay, see you then.